And I wanted to just come on here, and I guess I'm just going to have to make this a running theme of this channel. But I wanted to come back in here and address a topic that is so crucial to the understanding of the text. Do you understand what I mean? You guys, Esau is not the white man. Stop deceiving people. Stop deceiving yourself. Do you see what I'm saying? The scripture talks about waxing more evil and deceiving and being deceived, right? Right? Isn't that what it says? I'm butchering the text, but deceiving and being deceived are the operative terms here. People that are only doing cursory research will fall into this false doctrine. And it's an easy one to fall into because people are just looking to hate somebody, and this doctrine will give them someone to hate. And it's false. And people really, really, really need to just do the real research and find out what it is that they're talking about before they make these references and miscalculations in the text, because people are misunderstanding left and right. Do you understand what I'm saying? So first of all, let's dig into this doctrine here and a lot of the falsehoods that are going on with it. I had another video up, but I think it caught me yelling at my son. So I got that one down and then started this one up. Every time I walk past the door, they're taking a test right now. And every time I walk past, he's going to call me and ask about something. So he's not going to be able to do that. Anyway, guys, I wanted to get into the beginning of this doctrine, right? The beginning of where people say that it starts at. So people say that now, this is what people say now, that Edom or Esau is the modern white man and the antithesis enemy of the Israelites. You can really, really, really easily destroy this doctrine in a very simple way. Deuteronomy chapter 23, I think it's verse 7, thou shalt not abhor an Edomite because he is your brother. What? Esau is your brother? What? Jacob, Esau is your brother. Have you forgotten? Have ye not heard? Did ye not know that Esau was your brother? So how come now all over the internet you see Esau, 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 Esau? Esau is the white man. Esau is Donald Trump. Esau is all. I see a video with Donald Trump and the face of Esau on it. Donald Trump being Esau, your brother. How ridiculous of a doctrine can you get? He's not just any other. He's your twin brother. Since when have you seen twin black and white babies? You don't see that. It may happen every blue moon, but wouldn't you know they would say something about that? Isn't his name Edom, right? The nation of Edom is named Edom. Why? Because Edom means red. Doesn't it say that Esau was red? I mean, I know it's after his red bowl, but there's a dual connection, right? You know, black people like to make connections, don't we? Don't you have a buddy whose nickname is Black? Don't you have a buddy whose nickname is Red? How many of y'all out here got buddies named Red? How many of y'all got buddies out here named Red and there's more than one? There's more than two. There's a bunch of reds. There's a bunch of red bones. There's a yellow bones. Do you understand what I mean? So being called red, not a white people thing. Do you see what I mean? White people can exhibit red because their skin is translucent. And this is why they can exhibit the color that's in their body. The actual term Adam, comes from Adamah, which is the ground. That's not the type of red that they're talking about when they talk about white folks. Do you see what I'm saying? You're not getting that type of red. You're getting pink with white folks. When we mean red, we mean deep dark like the ground, like the red clay. That's what Edom means. So how in the world then do you have a blue-eyed Esau? It never happened. You guys recognize that blue eyes are a recessive trait. That means they are a mutation. That means that they come up from a specific family and they stay in that family. Esau doesn't have any genetic mutations like that. Esau was light-skinned. He was your brother. Do you understand what I mean? He was red-skinned. He was a red bone person. You usually reserve the title red bone for women, but this is what you see when you look at the black community today, that we use the same terminology. What's crazy, and I guess I should get to that a little bit later on, but what's crazy is that some of y'all out there that are calling people Edom and looking at, people Edomite, are Edomites yourselves, because Edom joined with Judah in 70 AD. But we can get into that now. So I'm a little bit fired up about this because I'm just scrolling down my timeline here and I see two different people with two different reasons why they believe that Esau is the white man, and they're both just way off track, right? So one is looking in the Talmud, and the Talmud is talking about all of these different crazy things and associated with Esau and Edom, right? They're identifying Rome as Esau. Rome is not Esau. Rome is not Edom. You guys have to understand that at the time that the Talmud was written, the Jews were being oppressed by Rome. Do you understand? At the time that the Talmud was written, then an ancient enemy of Israel would have Esau. So what the Jews did was they picked one ancient enemy and associated it with another. The fake Jews today are doing the same thing by calling the Palestinians Amalekites. Got it from us. We have been doing it for thousands of years, identifying an ancient enemy with a contemporary one. Does that make sense to you guys? That's what we did in the Talmud. And not only talking about Esau being Rome, but all other different wild, non-biblical things. You don't go looking in the Talmud for identification. You will be fooled. The Talmud is a book of witchcraft. You're not going to find truth in a book of witchcraft. You guys, the Talmud is something that you do not need. Do not be going in the Talmud. This is the Pharisaic doctrine. If you want to just go dive deep and get into Pharisaic doctrine and understand what it is that Yahushua commanded you not to do, do that. You see what I mean? This is the false doctrines that Yahushua was about when he's talking about the Pharisees that are making people more evil or hound of hell than they were before. Because now you have this wild Edomite doctrine that is damning you because it's literally a sin according to Deuteronomy 23:7. That's one of those thou shalt nots. So you can't have a doctrine misidentifying and hating Esau because you're commanded not to. For Esau specifically. And that's why this doctrine exists. It exists and is created by the people that want to keep you in sin. It is created by people who want to see you slip. A stumbling stone that they are rolling into the Hebrew community like a bowling ball and is knocking down all the pins. Not this one. Because why? I do my research. I know better. I know it's a 0.0001 chance of having a white and a black twin and them going on to lead entire white nations and then entire black nations. It's ridiculous. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's ridiculous. The real understanding that we have about the white man is he comes from the line of Japheth. And that the Japhethites were in the far northeast, that the Japhethites were mostly trapped in the Caucasus Mountains, with the Ural Mountains to the west, and there's another mountain range to the east, and the Caucasus to the south. Do you understand what I'm saying? This group of people was isolated in those mountains for thousands of years. They were cave dwellers. They were nomadic land travelers going from place to place to place because their food was scarce. They developed wild mutations that were only able to flourish, here it is, y'all, because they were trapped in the Caucasus Mountains. If you have Edom right next to Jacob and they're in a land that's surrounded by people, you're not going to have any recessive traits at all, are you? You're not going to have any recessive traits. You're not going to get blue eyes and blonde hair to survive. You have to be isolated in order for, you're not going to get blue eyes, blonde hair. You have to be isolated in your own separate community for these recessive traits to survive. That's genetic science, you guys. You're not going to have Edom right across the street from Judah and surrounded by every other black nation in history and have recessive traits. You're not going to have the blackest people in the world just 1,000 miles south, or not even 1,000, maybe 500, 600, 700 miles south of you in Sudan, in modern day Sudan, but ancient Kush, and then you have some back and forth. You're going to get blue eyes and blonde hair wiped out. Do you see what I'm saying? They only can exist if put in a bowl and they're able to proliferate for 1,000 years. And that's exactly what we see. We see literally that these people were put in a bowl and trapped. Even the Quran talks about it, but the Quran got it from us, of course. We don't use the Talmud. We don't use the Quran either. But for historical purposes, it's very, very, very important for you to understand. In Edom with Rome, because of King Herod. Did the Jews love King Herod? No, they didn't. Did the Jews love the Herodians? No, they didn't. But what did Rome do? Rome went down into the community and they saw the two groups that hated each other, even though at this time, and I guess I got to go a little bit further back in order to explain why there's this animosity and tension. We know way far back in the day, it was from Edom not allowing us to pass through in the wilderness. And then that ancient animosity spurred into warfare and annual warfare on down the line. But once you get to Judah Maccabea in the intertestamental period, you guys do some research on the intertestamental period. This is very, very important. Once you get to Judah Maccabea in intertestamental period, you get to a point where, hey, we got 3 people on here. Shalom, shalom, Mishpachah. Oh, it's down to 1 now. But you get to a point in time where you have Edom and Judah merge. You guys go look in history and see if I'm playing. The Edomites converted to Judaism in the 2nd century BC, in the time of Judah Maccabea, you guys. 2nd, 3rd century BC, in the time of Judah Maccabea. Judah Maccabea conquered Edom and forced them to be circumcised. Or you could say compelled them strongly to be circumcised. And they did. And they, for 200 years, check this out, you guys, lived as Jews. For 200 years, lived as Jews. That means you have all of Edom going to the Passover. You have all of Edom going to tabernacles. You have all of Edom worshiping in the same style as the Jews are, behaving as Jews, and even stronger behaving as Jews, because they've got that monkey on their back because of their ancient history. Do the research, you guys. Do you guys know who zealots are? The community of zealots in the Jewish community in the 1st and 2nd centuries, AD and BC. The zealots were a group of fanatical Hebrews who would carry knives, and they would attack the Romans. They were a gang, and they hid in secret, and they were stealthy, and they were not playing games. The zealots would destroy whole communities just because they were messing around with Rome. You were in bed with Rome. What group of people did these zealots consist of? Edomites, y'all. Edomites were known to be zealots. They were not only strongly religious about Judaism, or whatever you want to call it. They'd kill you for it. That's how strongly they believed in it. That's how much they wanted to be associated with Judah, which was just to the west. They were zealots. They were known to read Josephus. They were known to be zealots. The Edomites were zealous people in Israel. They were killing people because they were messing with Rome, because they didn't want to be associated with Rome. Do you see what I'm saying? Because the Talmud, the Pharisaic people, saw them as an easy target to maintain their power. So they said, oh, this is ancient Edom. This is, look at Herod. And look, we see Herod. Look at what he's doing, right? But they just like, they all knew then that the Herodians were the only family. The Herodian being the family that Herod comes from, and all the Herods, because there was more than one. And it's not a large group. It's a very high society group of Edomites that joined with Rome. But in the fall of Jerusalem in 70 AD, if you do your research, Edom provided 20,000 zealots to fight side of Judah. Does that sound like they joined with Rome to you? Edom provided 20,000 zealots to fight for the temple. And you here 2 years later calling them Rome. Calling them white folks. And they had never, ever nothing to do with no white folks. Ever. You see what I'm saying? Calling them out their name when the commandments themselves tell you you're not supposed to hate him because he was your brother. The commandments themselves in the Torah itself, it tells you that you better not hate an Edomite. And look at what we have in this modern society today. That's by design, you guys. And I'll tell you who it's by design from. The people that you are supposed to be looking at. Do you see what I'm saying? The people who have been your ancient enemy. The people who are predicted to be your future enemy. That's the people that made this doctrine. Those people who are in Israel now. And they are, you guys, Gog and Magog. Bible calls them Gog and Magog. Josephus calls them Gog and Magog. There's many, many texts that we don't have for this very reason. You have been deceived into believing that the white man is Esau. You have been deceived into calling your brother out of his name. And the scripture says that is a sin. In Deuteronomy 23, it says that's a sin. That's a thou shalt not sin. You guys? And here it is, the most popular doctrine in Israel is a sin. Is that surprising to you? Do you see what I'm saying? How it's the most popular doctrine in Israel. People love to talk bad about Esau. People love to talk bad about Esau, but it's a sin. It's a Torah sin. It's not later on down the line, this was added in, or, in the Messiah's time, okay, now you just treat them. It's way, way, way back in Deuteronomy. Do you see what I'm saying? It's back in Deuteronomy that tells you, do not hate Edomite. Do you see what I'm saying? And here you are in the modern day misrepresenting him as the white man. And what do you know? You may be from an Edomite family. If they merged with Judah, and it was 20,000 zealots that fought on behalf of Judah, that means that when they died, the survivors, whether it be few or plenty, were enslaved just along with the Judites and sent into captivity right along with the Judites to mix and merge through families together. So guess what? While you're talking this Edomite this, Edomite that, you probably are an Edomite. You probably got Edomite blood in you. And it ain't from white side or, slave master and them from back in the day. It's from red across the street. Your cousin Red. You see what I mean? I mean, am I lying? Am I just trolling? No, I'm not. It proves, the Bible proves. The scripture says that the name would be wiped out, that the people would be wiped out, that they would be gone. Right? And that's what they are today. That's what the scripture says. That's what they are. What does the scripture say about Gog and Magog? That at the end of the world, they will be the ones that gather the armies together from the four corners to try to destroy you. And what else does it say about Magog? That they will bring with them many, many, many different other tribes. Don't you see that happening today, you guys? Isn't Gog and Magog in control of the world right now, you guys? Is that what we see? If you look at the book of Daniel and you look at the feet and the toes made of iron and mirror clay, what does that represent? Is that Jacob and Esau, right? No. It represents a mixed kingdom with a kingdom here, a kingdom there, that are not mixing with other people, but trying very hard to mix with other people and get along like other people get along, but from a ruler's perspective. Isn't that what you see in the world today? We have one group of people and the descendants all over the world of this one group of people that control the world. The people with all these recessive traits that you would definitely have to be isolated for thousands of years to maintain and proliferate. Isn't that what history shows us? That after the fall of Rome, the Romans lost control of Rome. Do you understand that Rome was conquered in the 5th century AD? Rome was conquered, you guys. 5th, 6th century AD. History lesson, who was Rome conquered by? Conquered by the Goths. Who were the Goths? Who were the Goths, you guys? Because the Goths conquered England, conquered Ireland, Scotland, Wales. They conquered Germany. They conquered France. They conquered Italy, Rome. They conquered North Africa. They conquered the Middle East. They conquered everything in that area. The Goths did. The Goths, the Ostrogoths, the Visigoths, the Lombards, what's another name? The Franks, group. There's tons of these different groups, and they're all called Goths. Who are these Goths? When you look at history, you look them up. The Goths are associated with Gog and Magog. Goth is another term for Gog. And these are the people that conquered Rome in the 6th century AD. So the people that you're calling Esau got conquered. They got conquered and enslaved. And then the Magogites took over. They took over. It says, bring out the scriptures proving white man is Gog and Magog. You already know where it is. Ezekiel 38 and 39. It predicts the end of the world being ruled by the families of Gog and Magog that rule along with all of these other families. You can't get around Eliyahu. You can't get around that Gog and Magog is discussed in the end of the world, both in Ezekiel and Revelation. And I only just have a little bit of time left because my phone is getting ready to do Ezekiel and Revelation. Before the 1,000-year kingdom and after the 1,000-year kingdom. So that means that this final kingdom, the Daniel, feet and toes, mirror clay and iron kingdom, has to be the kingdom that Ezekiel is talking about. Gog and Magog, that are establishing kingdoms all over the world, that have enslaved our people for the last 1,000 years and are now in control of history and telling you that they're somebody that they're not. They're telling you that they're your brother, that the scripture tells you that you're not supposed to hate. They know about Deuteronomy 23 just like you do. And so they come up with this doctrine of themselves, someone that you're not supposed to hate. But they're actually the other person that's not related to you at all, except through Japheth, way back to Noah. And they've gone in their own line and then took history from you right out of your mind, your heart. Took it right out of your heart. And told you, no. We're your brother. Even though we don't look anything like you, and even though we don't have the same history whatsoever, even though we don't even have any trace of the Middle East in ancient times, ever. But no, we're your brother. They don't have not a single white person in Middle Eastern history until 1,000 years ago, you guys. It was all black. It was all black. They don't even have that in history. This is all brand new and all end of the world stuff, end of days stuff. That's why this is so important, y'all, because it is a heavy sin to misidentify people. It's heavy. It's so heavy that Deuteronomy 23 says, you shall not hate an Edomite. And if you've misidentified him as God, from Gog and Magog, then you've sinned. You see what I'm saying? And it's not a joke. It's not laughing because it's a crazy doctrine. It's a doctrine that doesn't deserve to have people spellbound like they are. Let me see what these commenting. It says, okay, but that's not saying Esau is Gog and Magog. The nation, yes, they are taking on the tribes of Gog and Magog, but they aren't Japhetites. My goodness, my brother. Please go read Josephus. Go read Josephus and figure out where these people come from. He breaks it down in one of the first books. All the nations, their ancient names and their modern names, from ancient times in the Bible into modern times in the first century. Go ahead, you got 5 minutes. And then get back on it. From ancient times to first century, Josephus laid all on the line. I've got a video about this. It's 30 minutes long. I've been doing this research, and let me tell you guys, it's important for you to know because these Gog and Magogites are in control. They have a Gog and Magog parade in London every year, in Central City, London. If you know anything about that being the banking capital of the world, it's its own city, like Washington, D.C. is its own city, and it's not incorporated into Virginia or Maryland. Inner city London is its own city, too. It's its own, like, small little nation. Same thing with Vatican City, if you guys know the triangle of power between Rome, London, and America. These are all the places that Gog and Magog conquered. And guess what? You have a trifecta of power in different places. You know, like feet and toes of iron and Mary clay, a scattered kingdom. It just makes too much sense, you guys. It's just plain. It's just plain. Let's see what the comments say. It says, was Josephus inspired by the set-apart spirit of Elohim to break down? Is Josephus an Israelite or a man from another nation? You gotta understand your history. Josephus wasn't just any Israelite. He was an Israelite, but he wasn't just any Israelite. He was a priest in Israel from a priestly class of Levites, you guys. So he had access to every ancient script for as long as he's been alive. Josephus was an Israelite of Israelites, like Paul was, even more so than Paul, because Paul was a Benjamite. Josephus was a Levite. He was a priest. His family worked in the temple. People crazy. How y'all don't know who Josephus is? He is the leading historian in Israelite history, and nobody knows who he is. The reason why is because he was a general that switched sides, right? And people don't like this about Josephus. He did end up switching sides after the temple fell, after everything was done and Rome charged. He wrote the histories. He went and worked for Rome. He said, okay, well, I got to do this. And Rome was bragging about how easy of a victory it was for the Israelites to be wiped out. And Josephus said, nuh-uh, let me tell you the history of my people before you start talking about us like we were just some tiny nation that was easy to conquer. We are the original, and you have to give us some respect in that. And him doing that, he wrote 2 works. He wrote the Wars of the Jews, and he wrote Antiquities of the Jews. And Antiquities he wrote so that he could get all the things that he wanted to correct in wars corrected. And he makes many of them in the text. I said this before, this is the correction. He goes to the book of Genesis and outlines every ancient nation, old names and by their modern names. And when he gets to Gog and Magog, he says those are the Scythians. And if you look at who the Scythians are, they are the barbarians that come from the north that have all of history been identified as Gog and Magog. Those barbarians went on to conquer Rome. Those barbarians went on to conquer France and all of Europe. Those barbarians went on to conquer North Africa and the Middle East. Those barbarians went on to conquer Australia, China, Russia, Japan. Those barbarians went on to conquer all of America and then change all the history books to tell you that they're Esau. Not change the history books, change the interpretation of the history book so that you could look at the history and not know what you're reading or where to get the historical right facts and then how to interpret them with the Bible. Do you see what I'm saying? Edom was conquered by Judah Maccabea 2,200 years ago. And before the temple fell, they were stronger worshipers of Elohim, many Israelites. They were zealots. Josephus talks about all of this. 20,000 Edomites went with Judah to battle Rome. They are not just turning around and becoming Rome after that. There was one Roman family among Edom, and they were the Herodians. And guess what? The Romans picked them to lead the Israelites and the Edomites. This is why the Talmud talks about them as if they're Rome because of Herod. This is History 101, you guys. Bible History 101. Do not be confused. Please don't be confused. And yes, I am kind of bugging out about this because it's a huge sin. And I see it in everywhere I go. It's in every Israelite community that I see online. Every single one. And what am I supposed to do is put out these fires here, 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 here. No, I mean, one maybe, but this is the best that I can do to keep people out of this wild and crazy sin. We're not supposed to hate nobody, first off. But we definitely not supposed to misidentify someone that the scripture calls our brother and then have an entire doctrine based on how that person has in the modern days enslaved us when the actual culprit is getting away scot-free. Gog and Magog. Then the prophecies are being just looked over. You see what I'm saying, y'all? Let me get to these comments. Okay, I'm going to go back, Eliyahu, here. It says, okay, but that's not saying Esau is Gog and Magog. The nation, yes, they have taken on the tribes of Gog and Magog, but they aren't Japhethites. Just really do the history. They are second generation Japhethites. So it was Gomer and then Gog. I believe that Gomer was the one that gave birth to Magog, or Magog's brother. They could either be first or second generation Japhethites. But let me tell you, they're Japhethites. You can't just scientifically, you cannot have blonde hair and blue eyes and white skin in a community at all, in a black community at all. That leaves in the first generation. The kids that result from somebody blonde-haired and blue-eyed and white skin and somebody black, you're not going to catch that blonde hair in the next generation. You're not going to catch that blue eyes in the next generation. They're wiped out after one generation. After two, you never even knew that there was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed in your family. You never even knew it. So that means they would have never survived in the community in the Middle East at all in ancient times. That means to have been isolated somewhere to create thousands and thousands and millions of them that share these same characteristics because they're going after each other and maintaining these recessive traits, making them dominant, but only in their gene pools. It's proof that not Shem. It's proof that they're not Shem. Proof that they're not Eber. You're calling white folks Hebrews. I mean, because these are Hebrew Edomites, not Hebrew Israelites. Are you willing to say that this is a Hebrew Edomite? because that's what you're saying. That's the doctrine that you're telling the world, that these are Hebrew Edomites, and really we're not supposed to hate them because they're our brothers. That's what you're telling. That's what you're telling us, and then they're killing us because they're Gog and Magog. It's something that they wrote themselves. Okay, all right, let me get back to the comments. It says they are in the land of ancient Gog, because Russia is the land of that ancient nation, but they aren't people themselves. Prove it. Rus is Rush. Rush. Have you seen Rush in the text? Or, okay, so it says the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, right? It says Gog and Magog and the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal. This is where it pays to know some Hebrew. That word chief prince is, what is it? It's Rush, right? Rush Shir. That means the head prince. But it also could be a name of someone. But we have in history, in these same lands, someone whose name was Rush. Rush. There was a Rush there. One of the sons of Magog was Rus. That's where the term Russia comes from. The capital of Russia is called Moscow. Guess what? The term Moshach is Moscow. It's the same word. Meshach and Tubal. Meshach is Moscow. Man, get out of here with all that. These are those people. These are Gog and Magog for sure. It's not a joke, troll, or maybe this, maybe that. No, this is with absolute certainty. This is with biblical prophetic authority. Playing? You think it's a game? No, we're not out here just saying anything that we want to say so we can win an argument or at the end of the day be called a great teacher or any of that. No, it's because people need to know and stop doing this wild, foolish, false research. And I hate to be so blunt and plain about it, but it's time for people to stop. All right, you guys, hold on one second. Who's calling me? What's up, son?
This one is I was trying to figure out what you meant because I could only get certain words out of it, and it was a big thing. So I wanted to know what you mean.
Flesh it out just a little bit more, and that should be good. You know what I mean by flesh it out? Just build it up a little bit more, and what you have is pretty good. Just tell me just a little bit more, and you'll be okay. You only need maybe a couple more lines. Okay, let me get back to these comments because I do need to address historically where people's, misdirection is. Because I know that there are places in the text where it appears that Esau will be at the end of the world, like in 2nd Esdras, where it says Esau is the end of the world and Jacob is the beginning. You got to know your Hebrew because that word world is era, moment in time, right? The end of this moment in time and Jacob being the beginning of the next one, right? You see at the time of Messiah that Esau was ruling over Jerusalem, but in the Herodians, right? So literally at the end of the former age, before the age of Messiah, was Edom, right? Edom with Romans, just the Herodians being in charge of the Jews. After that, that is no more. After that, it's Yahusha from then on. And Edom joined in with them. Edom joined in with Judah. And in fact, there were so many Edomite believers in the Messiah that they survived, a lot of them that weren't zealots, they survived the destruction of the temple, the destruction of Jerusalem. A lot of the communities that embedded in these Gentile nations, like the Corinthians and the Galatians, a lot of them had Edomites there because they were known also for being Nazarene, for believing, believing in the Messiah. Like we said before, Edom at this time was like really like the guy that's been, down the street that don't get to play with all the kids up the street. And finally he gets to play with the kids up the street. And the kids up the street are like, okay, here come down the street coming up this way. And but down the street comes up and said, come on, play with me. I'm cool. Really, we do the same things. They were hyped about being in Judah. They were stronger believers than the Judites were because they were new. You've seen people that are new in the faith and they're all over it. They're on fire. This is what all of Edom was, and that's why they believed the Messiah right off the bat. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is the exact historical record of what happened. I'm not just talking here. This is the record of what happened. When Jerusalem fell, those same strong believers joined Judah. So we have Edomite families now in Judah. You probably have more Edomite blood in you than than any other besides Judah, more Edomite, because we joined. We joined when the temple fell. And the name Edom was gone after that, and only associated in Talmudic text when they needed an ancient name to call the other person now that's oppressing us and make people mad. And that's what the Talmud is all about. All right. It says, is Josephus an Israelite or a man from another nation? He's an Israelite. We went over that. Was Josephus inspired by the set apart of Elohim to break down scripture, or was that given to the Israelites to be prophets? So this is a Levite. So he understood the text in a way that we can only dream of today. He had access to all the ancient text and all the ancient understanding that we don't have today. We know that from Josephus that that David had a psalm for every day of the week, day of the year. So that's 364 psalms, right? 364 psalms. We only have 150, right? Not all of them are from David. So that means that Josephus had access to all of them psalms that we did not. It said that Solomon had 1,000 proverbs. We only have a few books of Proverbs, right? What, how, 31 chapters? So where are the rest of the Proverbs? And we know not all of them are from Solomon. All of this stuff Josephus had access to. The war of Moses. Moses went to war with Ethiopia on the side of Egypt before he went into exile in Midian. This is where he gained his Ethiopian wife from. Josephus has record of that. The war of Samuel. Samuel went to war as a general before David. Josephus has records of that. We don't, because we live in an era where the information that we have is limited. Josephus had access to the source. Like I said, he's the greatest Israelite historian to ever live. I mean, of course, him being inspired to write comes from inspiration itself, because guess what? After 70 AD, our stuff was gone and put into other hands. So there had to be a historian that comes through and write everything down from Genesis to the fall. Josephus writes down everything Hebrew from Genesis to the time of the fall of Jerusalem. That's our entire history. We're just going to overlook it. No, we need to know who he is. We need to understand it. And we need to look there before we look in the Talmud. All right, so what else does it say? Amos 2:11, you're going to have to give me that one. It says, and I raised up your sons for the prophets and your children of Nazarites. Is it even thus, O ye children of Israel, saith Yah. It's like, all right, so I had a misunderstanding on Josephus. I just looked him up, and you're right. He is an Israelite. The Scythians were the first Europeans before the white man stole that name. So no, Japheth isn't Esau. I see why you're confused. It's quite simple. I may do a video of it on it because of your knowledge. Is right, but you're twisting the two nations. I'm not. America is an extension of the Roman Empire, along with the EU, NATO. So, I mean, you're just proving my point. The United Nations, being all of these European or European-styled countries, really proves Daniel chapter 2, where it's the feet and toes of Mary Clay. The United Nations is what that is. It's the feet and toes of Mary Clay. And this is the one world nation that Daniel talks about will come at the end of the world. And this is the nation that the stone from heaven that was cut without hands falls upon and turns the whole entire statue into the chaff, which is blown away with the wind. Do you see what I'm saying? So it makes sense for there to be a divided rule of things in this last time. This is a prophecy that we've had since the time of Daniel. That's 2,500 years ago. So we understand this coming to pass now because we look and know, and with inspiration, read the text and interpret it properly. We have to interpret it properly. We can't misinterpret it. We can't have misunderstandings. We can't not know who the historical figures of our people are. We have to know these things. These are mistakes that we can't make. If we're going to call ourselves teachers, if we're going to put videos on the internet, if we're going to claim to be leaders of men, if we're going to claim to be leaders of the blind, the teachers of babes, then we have to ourselves not be babes. We have to ourselves not be blind. We have to ourselves not follow popular doctrines. We have to ourselves look at the text and say, oh my gosh, Deuteronomy 23 says hating the Edomite is a sin. I need to look deeper into this. I'm serious. It's just true. It says, it extends all the way up until now. Do you believe in the book of Jubilees? I don't, but I'm just trying to see. So again, with every book that we have to look at it with a critical eye. So the book of Jubilees has some truth in it and it has some falseness in it, just like the book of Jasher. These are two intertestamental books that it would behoove us. Thank you, son. Thank you. I'll get right to it here right after I get off this video here. I said it would behoove us to get right. You can sit down if you want to. You just trying to be on camera though. It would behoove us to know things. And I'm not trying to get distracted here, but I was just getting ready to say something. It says, right, but Twisted Americans, it just wasn't during the time. No, so no, it wasn't just during the time of the Herodian. Okay, hold on. It extends all the way up. Do you believe in the book? Oh, yeah, the book of Jubilees. The Jubilees, we know, comes from the intertestamental period, but we do not have an author for it. We don't have an author for the book of Jasher. We know the ancient book of Jasher is not the modern book of Jasher. We know that these books, those two books, try to explain things in the text that is not forthcoming on. And I can't remember if it's the book of Jubilees or the book of Jasher, which points out that Melchizedek is Shem. We know that that's not true. We know Melchizedek is not Shem because of the book of Hebrews. So whichever book that's in, whether it's Jasher or Jubilees, that's wrong. So we've already pointed out that one thing in one of these books, whichever one it is wrong, is absolute, or Hebrews is wrong. Because the book of Hebrews says in chapter, is it 8 or 9, or 7, where it talks about Melchizedek, that Melchizedek has no father or mother or lineage. This is what that means. Date, birth date, father, mother. We don't know anything about Melchizedek. That's what the author of Hebrews says. So then how does the author of Jasher know and the author of Hebrews doesn't? The author of Hebrews clearly has access to ancient records because he claims to, right? He says we don't have any records of his mother or father death date. Do you see what I'm saying? This is what they say about Melchizedek. Why? Because Melchizedek was from the Jebusites. It's in the kitchen. It's hanging up. It's hanging up. It's a bag. And so we know that that part of Jubilees, or if it's Jasher, is wrong. But not everything in those books is wrong. We know that the story of Abraham and his uncle, his brother, how his brother died. You know, there's two stories in Jasher, from Jasher to Jubilee. One of them is he died in a fire. The other one is he died in a fire caused by Abraham. So even though they may be on similar terms, they're wrong in terms of who is going which way, or there's a discrepancy between the two. And so we have to watch and we have to research and we have to make sure. I stay away from these in Jasher because there's so many misinterpretations of it that I can't, to track down and pinpoint each and every one. I do pay attention to the minor things that show up in the Bible too, and verify it with the Bible. And then I also verify it with Josephus. If this is in all of those places, say, okay, well, I can trust in that particular fact. But if it's just Jubilees on its own, and this is the only place where that information is coming from, then I'm not going to trust it. For one, it says that the angels were created on the first day. I don't see that. I don't see that in the text. It doesn't say that in the text. You see what I'm saying? Already there were angels before the first day because there was a whole spiritual world before the first day, and we know that. All right. It says, last days, it settles all arguments you brought up in this video with no problem. It says, okay, now the fact that you believe in those explain a lot. See, what people want to do is find reasons or find problems with the person so they can look at the information and say, oh, I'm just going to reject this information because now since you believe in this other thing, now I know that you can't know what you're talking about. But these are the same people that are Shalom and Yahwadah and all of this other Hebrew that never existed in the history of Hebrew. Do you see what I'm saying? This is the level of research where we're at, where we're being fooled by people that can't talk. Do you see what I'm saying? That don't know how to read correctly. We're being fooled into ignorance, and we perceive it as intelligence. We say that, oh, we've been given the light. Now we know how to say tawada for thank you. Oh, toda. Toda. It's very simple, you guys. Very simple. Do the associated research. I don't want to be online playing what do you believe in games with people that are only going to do half research anyway. This is a session of understanding. You can either learn from it or you can go right on about your business or down the false doctrine that now you know for a fact is a false doctrine and be completely in sin thinking that you're walking in the light. So that's it, guys. All right, I hate for this to be such a wild session, but I mean, it is what it is. If you're believing in false doctrines and you're out there proclaiming it to be truth on the internet, I'm going to say something about it. Okay, you guys. Shalom, shalom. Peace and blessings.